Hello and welcome to Footy Classified. What a big week it's been in football. In that opener, those sayings we've said for a long time, they've proved to be quite prescient as you look back on them. I'll come back to that in a few moments' time because we are going to have a look at the drug rules, we are going to have a look at the tribunal, we are going to have a look at all sorts of things, including another big story from Twomey tonight about the latest target from Tasmania. Before we do that, however, let's welcome the boys. Twomey is with us tonight, Dermott Brereton and James Hird, two blokes who played a pivotal role in the very first Collingwood Essendon Anzac Day game. We'll preview that in detail later on Footy Classified. Cal, first up, before we get to Elijah Hollands and the situation there and a discussion that we'll have around everything that's going on, you've got some news, and sadly for Carlton, it's not great as far as the father-son's concerned. No,
not Carlton, not Port Adelaide, not Essendon. None of these clubs are going to be happy with where this is heading. We've been talking about the new draft academy bidding rules for a number of weeks now, Ed, and the expectation now firmly is that the AFL will play well and we'll introduce these for 2026. There's been some tweaking over the last couple of weeks. Gather round was the final element of lobbying from all of these clubs, and the AFL has taken stock of that, but I still firmly expect that these will come through in 2026 and impact the draft this year. Right, just quickly, what does that mean to Carlton, Essendon and Port Adelaide, and why is it coming? It means that Cody Walker they're going to have to pay a huge price for, but they're ready to some degree for that. It means that Essendon will have to pay a bigger price for Kobe Buick next year, a father-son, and for Port Adelaide they might have to match a bid at number one, using a lot of Zach Butters picks potentially on Dougie Cochran and more players next year. It's come in because the AFL is of the view that now or never, that you get it done now. If it's not now, then down the track it's going to disadvantage other clubs. And disappointingly for those three clubs, the reason is to try and equalise the academies that they didn't do last year, and the academies filled their boots up in the northern states, and now it's these clubs that are going to cop the whack. The timing's not great for them. Yeah. Carlton got Harry Dean last year under the system, though, and Essendon got Isaac Kako 2 years before that, so things go in circles. But that's it, there's the answer, it's done now. When will that be announced? I'm expecting sometime over the next week or so, Ed. Great stuff, thank you, Cal. Let's go. Elijah Hollands, let's go to the update. Some very poignant messages released by father and brother today. Yeah, and before that, we'll get to the message from WorkSafe as well, because WorkSafe confirmed that it will conduct preliminary inquiries into Carlton's action and management of Elijah Hollands. We see the statement there. They're assessing the matter to determine whether any action is required under the Occupational Health and Safety Act. And they should. That's what they should do as the governing authority. Do that. But at the moment, Carlton are doing their own investigation. But let's have a listen. Let's talk about what's been said today. As you say, poignant is the word here, I think, because Ben Hollands, the father of Elijah Hollands and Ollie Hollands, broke his silence today on Instagram. We'll see his statement here if we can, because this is my beautiful boy. For anyone in the midst of healing, you are loved, you have a unique and defined purpose, you are seen whole. I know who my son is and I will lift him up until he is restored in full. For those supporting someone who is struggling, encourage them, affirm them and love them, go to them, remind them of who they truly are. And I think even more pertinently, the message that came through from Ollie Hollands, his brother and teammate, of course, at Carlton. Who's playing in this game. Playing in the game, is expected to play this week as well in Perth. There were no words to describe how grateful we are for the love and support for Elijah and our family. We want to say a huge thank you to the Carlton Football Club, Blues supporters and the greater AFL community. It's incredibly challenging watching your brother go through something like this, but the amount of support we've received has been overwhelming. Derm and Hirdy, the big takeout there for me is the recognition of the Carlton Football Club, who have had a lot of questions asked of them, rightly, and a lot of blame apportioned to them, rightly, in my view. But they're asking the questions themselves, and from a brother and family member there, they're getting support and saying, well, you've actually been there at different stages for him as well. Well, I think they're two terrific statements from family members supporting their son and supporting their brother and supporting Carlton as well, which I think is the poignant thing. I can't wait to hear from Ollie Hollands, though, to actually in an interview at some stage down the track, how he, from Ollie, about what he saw on the ground. Did he see his brother act any differently? How is his feelings coming out of that game? Because yes, Elijah's the story, but as a brother, I imagine you would have seen something or noticed something, and how you react in that moment, I think will be interesting to find out. You think Ollie would have been more sensitive to any abnormalities in the behaviour at the time? Hasn't come out that way, but that's a beautiful statement. He's spoken very well. Kel, I'll put this to you, and then I want to ask you guys directly. We're hearing various things coming out at the moment, and one thing is that this is has not been unusual for Elijah to be fizzed up before a game, if you like, and sometimes it takes him a little while to get into it. And there was some talk that Carlton were letting him play a little bit to find his feet, but in fact it went the other way. Just quickly, Derm, teammates that you've had and Hirdy, I know, a couple of players. I mean,
I know Tony Lockett used to vomit before every game. He'd get into such a state. Josh Fraser used to do the same thing, to the point where I actually went to a doctor one time and said, is he okay? And he said, no, he does it every week. He just gets himself into a state, he vomits up and away he goes. Have you seen, I mean, in the old days we used to see blokes headbutting the lockers.
In the G up,
other blokes quietly going about themselves.
Different world, Ed, and I think Elijah Hollands is kind of fortunate that he's playing in this era. Had someone like Elijah Hollands come through 15 years ago, 20 years ago, we'd have looked at that, and let's say that on the mental health aspect, you'd say, he can't cut it, he can't take the heat. We must have lost so many talented players because the psyche of Australian rules football then was you take what is thrown at you, and if you can't take that heat, you get out of the kitchen. So he'll get care now, which he mightn't have in another era. So it's you can't say he's lucky now because he's not lucky because he's having to live this, but he's going to get cared for at least.
We'll let the investigation come out with its findings because we've had, 4 or 5 days of everybody going through it, from people on talkback radio to everything in between, whether they should have reacted or shouldn't have reacted. That will come out. Yeah. The AFL have a report, WorkSafer into it now, etc. I want to talk a bit more about that situation. Hirdy, you're at the VFL, you've coached at junior levels and you've seen everything come and go in a club. How important, to go on Dermot's theme, is it for us to not just have the perfect players coming through, to be able to bring the guys through, give them the level of support, but is it a case that sometimes just things happen?
Absolutely. I think that some people just aren't cut out for that environment. It doesn't work for them. And not saying that's Elijah this occasion, but you see a lot of people come through.
Well, it was on this occasion.
Yeah, you see a lot of players come through the AFL environment and they're just not cut out for AFL football. They might have the talent, they might have the fitness, but mentally they can't handle the scrutiny that comes with competing day in, day out. Because no matter whether you like it or not, it's a competition where people have to compete and fight and scrap. And the best competitors, the best players, are the ones that fight and scrap, and sometimes the dirtiest at certain times.
What are you staring at me for?
Well, just, I was staring at Cal, actually.
But for every Matty Rao, there's an Elijah Hollands as well. And Elijah's right at the extreme end of the scale. But there's plenty of blokes who would question themselves early days, is this really what I want?
Cal, the other thing is now, there is a far broader spectrum of mental health illness. Now, we've all sort of jumped at various stages into, personal problems. Does that equal a drug problem, etc., etc.? But we now have players. ADHD was something that no one had ever heard of not that long ago, and we've seen people like Heath Shaw be able to get himself and his life right because he was diagnosed and treated accordingly. We've got players on and people in society working on various levels of the spectrum, for an example. So it's a lot more vexed question than it once was. Now, I've been critical in the past that the drug rules still stop a doctor telling a coach. And it's been almost like the old American with the situation with homosexuality in the armed forces, don't ask, don't tell. So you've actually been trained at club level not to go into these areas. That the AFLPA have wanted to take control of mental health away from the clubs. The AFL took drug testing away from the clubs, remembering that the first drug test was done by Ian Collins in Carlton back in the 90s, I think it was, and then everyone jumped up and down. But that was to save players from themselves. My point is, I think that this gives us a really good opportunity in a vexed area, and this is so complicated, to sit down and go through things. And again, there's some really good things that have come in on this new drug policy, but there's a couple that I think need to go a bit further. And I think opening up the whole drug situation and just being honest and truthful is going to be far better. To me, always, sunshine is the best disinfectant. I think you've got to shine a light on things.
The question is around the coach too. I mean, how much is the coach allowed to know? Because I think, I don't know how much Michael Voss knew about the situation at the time, but when I was coaching, there were things that you were just told, no, don't ask those questions. Don't ask those questions and leave it alone. I think that's very difficult as a coach of an AFL club. If you're told, no, you can't ask the questions about a player's mental health or their social habits or what their family is, you actually need to know that to coach them properly, because coaching is about how you relate to individuals and people. And if you can't relate to them properly, how can you coach them properly? And
Derm, I was in plenty of presidents' meeting with the Commission when the lawsuit was being thrashed out, and plenty of clubs said, we don't want to know.
Really? Yeah.
Plenty of other clubs, myself and Jeff Kennett at times argued vehemently the other way. No, we're in charge.
I remember
we need to know.
Yeah, he was always about, well, how do I give them the best care necessary?
Exactly, and that's where we need to get to. And I think we need to take this out of any soft cap and really make it a focus.
And Jeff was on Beyond Blue, so he was right at the coalface of it for years and probably had a pretty good handle on where it should have gone. I'm convinced, though, in 2035, we'll look back at 2026 and say, we did what?
Yeah, well, hopefully we react to it. Yeah. Because mistakes will be made, but we've got to react the right way. I know the AFL have been in deep meetings all day today or every day since it's happened. And, I must admit, I was quite surprised that he didn't end up in hospital on Thursday night. Now, he's in there being cared for right now, and fingers crossed and all our thoughts with him. But
just on that,
let's build from this and maybe stop all the...
Why didn't he go to hospital sooner?
They went through their testing the next day and he's sort of submitted to that as well. Just on the soft cap part of this, Ed, you've been a big part of this through president functions and meetings over the course of the last 20 years. Should the personal development manager at every club be outside the soft cap? Should the psychology services be outside the soft cap? Should the education and welfare services all be outside the soft cap? Because is that a limit for what clubs themselves can do in an already stretched environment?
Well, possibly what it should be is be part of the dividends that the clubs get. This, to me, is an essential service, and that is what the AFL's job is to do. If they're going to collectively bring the money in, then you actually give money to clubs. So if everybody's got it, then there's no worries with a soft cap. It's not like Collingwood can go and have 17 psychologists and St Kilda can have one. You can actually do this properly. So what we need to do, and the AFL are doing this, so let's not think I'm giving the Sermon on the Mount here, but we need to move quicker on it and maybe be a little bit less fraught with hurting people's feelings on this, because not to be cruel to be kind, but we actually have to cut as close as we can to this to get it as happening quickly so that we can address what is a 2026 problem, probably more than it's ever been. It was something that was never spoken about. We want it spoken about. And I think the stigma that everyone used to carry on about is long gone. And again, I don't think that a coach, knowing that a player's got a mental health issue or even a drug issue, is going to get him to kick the bloke out of the club.
No, it's going to help him coach him. The coach is one of the closest. I mean, I don't know, Yabby, but Kevin Sheedy was one of the most influential people in my life. Yeah. And if he knew I had an issue, we'd talk about it.
Well, Mick Malthouse would go to every player before the game. He'd kick the ball with Daisy Thomas to see who he was on and get around. There's a lot going on with a lot of line coaches, and there's probably a lot less direct feel these days. Anyway, lots to get in. Bottom line is we want everybody to get right, particularly Elijah. And congratulations to his brother and his father and everyone in his family. They were the spokespeople for coming out and I think taking a fair bit of the heat out of it and doing the right thing. All right, let's get right into it now. What have you got? You've got a story here and you've got a mad stare, and I've got a funny feeling I'm going to be angry at the end of this. What is Tasmania doing?
Well, Tassie's got its eye on a Collingwood gun. Oh. It's not Nick Dacos.
No, you said last week it's not Nick Dacos.
Exactly, we can rule that out
Who now?
At the moment. Tasmania has made Beau McCreery a serious target for its inaugural list build. My understanding is the Devils would be prepared to put forward an offer of up to 7 years to lure him south at a deal number of around $1 million a season. He's 25. Importantly, he's out of contract at the end of next year. So, as we spoke about last week, the Devils are prioritising the out-of-contract and free agent market. He's going to have to make a decision next year, and we'll see what the Collingwood Footy Club puts forward in terms of trying to keep him next year. But played 102 games, Derm. Is he the right fit for Tasmania? Is the right type of target to
So before you do that, if he did go, what does Collingwood get?
Well, this would be under the formula that the AFL has brought in for next year, which we don't know yet, the actual details. But essentially, because he's out of contract, no trade would have to be made between the clubs. It'd just be a compensation pick or picks by virtue of how much he's been paid. Remember as well, we talk about that money figure. There's $58 million players last year. They've got a $5 million sign-on bonus fund to use over 2 years. So
what sort of range are we talking? If he's $1 million player, let's say there's $65 million players next year.
Yep.
And so it's the year after. What sort of compensatory pick are we looking at number-wise?
The AFL hasn't divulged that, but I think if you're
going on previous...
I think it'd be something in the first round. Yeah, inside the first round for that, no doubt.
All right, well, I hope that Beau has a good look around the crowd on Saturday at Anzac Day. And
can I just ask on that too?
Won't be getting that in line, sister.
You've mentioned it, unless Beau's watching tonight. Does he know about this? Has he been told the figures?
He knows.
Okay.
He knows. And look, Tasmania is making waves, and they have to be. They have to be getting in. By the end of this year, Hirdy, they want to have 3 or 4 players
what would he be being paid at Collingwood?
Well, he last signed his deal in 2023, so I'm estimating somewhere between $500,000 and $600,000 or so.
That's close to double what he's getting for, and he wouldn't get 7 years either.
He'd get a long-term deal at Collingwood if he stayed, and it'd be a fair pay rise. Remembering as well that he's going to come into that what would be his free agency deal. But yeah, Beau McCreary, a new name to add to the list.
Add to the list, indeed. He's a great player and he's well loved. He's a fan favourite. He's a very good player, Derm, and he's well loved at Collingwood.
I know, you're going to love him a whole lot more if you get a first rounder at the top end.
All right, speaking of Anzac Day, these two blokes, Dermott Brereton and James Hird, two of the greatest players for their respective clubs. Derm was only at Collingwood for 1 year and made an impact, particularly in this game. James, of course, one of the greatest players in the history of the Essendon Football Club. Let's go back to that wonderful, wonderful day in 1995.
We believe it's a lockout. People still outside the ground with the game about to start between Collingwood and Essendon. So the crowd inside is something like 90,000. Rocker, they swap him. But what a pass! It goes to McCurry. Open space for Mark McCurry. He goes for the goal. Another one.
Chips it into half forward. He finds Hird. Hird from 55 metres. James Hird sizes up the goal. Oh, great kick by Hird for a goal. Dermott Brereton. He brings it in towards Rocker, who's on fire. Well played, Severio Rocker. Rocker kicks a goal. It's a beautiful looking kick.
What a ball by Alessio. Hooks the ball to the pocket. Brereton. Well played, Derby. The kid goes for goal. And kicks a ripper.
Rocker. Severio Rocker. Brilliant mark.
Big leap by 42 Collins. How's that for a mark? Well played, O'Connor. Here's Hird. Sees daylight. Goes for it and kicks a ripper. Look at that. Sheer genius by James Hird. Brereton's there. And Rocker. Severio Rocker can level the scores. A chase for Buckley. There is time. 15 seconds left. Nathan Buckley goes short. Rocker's there. I reckon it's going to be a draw. There's the siren. Unbelievable. The season's first draw.
What a day it was to be there at the
Incredible
MCG.
game.
Yeah.
They talked about the crowd there. They kicked the gates open and there was more than 100,000, there's no doubt in my mind there. And there was another 20,000 out the front. And just the organic growth of that game was quite incredible. And again, we always say Kevin Sheedy, who went to Al McAllister and Gubby Allen and then to Brucey Ruxton at the RSL and turned it into something which has transcended football over the years. And again,
It's educated a lot of Australians too.
Totally.
Market,
look, Derm, I used to march in the Anzac Day parade as a kid in the band, a school band and things. Had to do it 3 times because you couldn't get anyone to turn up. So it really has done an amazing memorial for what the day is all about. And of course, the Anzacs.
It's a big kick, James.
It's a big
Yeah,
kick.
it's
Skip's there, was there,
a couple of steps. No, it's an incredible day. But the service before the game was always something I remembered. The silence before the game, and then the way that the crowd just erupted as the game started. And on this day in '95, you could not hear yourself think, could you? Derm? Grand finals are allowed, but this is a louder game than a grand
Derm,
final.
you played 5 times day, night, grand finals for the best part of a decade. This was probably your biggest Collingwood match as a kid who grew up barracking for the Pies. What did this mean to you this day, and did you realise it as it opened up what was going on?
Well, like James, we were sold the opportunity, and I remember being in the club rooms on the Thursday night.
And you nearly didn't play, didn't you?
Yeah, well, it's on the 25th of April, obviously. My daughter was born on the 23rd, and I had an all-night with her being born, so I had no sleep before the game. So I said to Lee, I'm really tired, I probably shouldn't play. And he said, no, I've got me balance, I need you out there. Blah, blah, blah. I remember though, James, you would have done the same thing. You know, when you get to the game in the old days and you'd go down the race and then you'd look out at the ground and there might have been a reserves game play and there might have been some form of entertainment. And you go down an hour and a half before, 2 hours before, and I'm thinking, nice crowd building up, we'll get a nice crowd here. I remember running onto the ground and just looking up and going, I was kind of used to big crowds at the MCG, and I went, where did they come from? It was heaving like no other home and away game I've ever experienced.
I describe it as like a wall of sound that actually hits you as you come up that race. The sound just hits you, and I've never had that experience except at Anzac Day. And I think the fact that it was a draw, and my memory is of Bucks streaming through the middle of the ground, and not that normally you go for goal there. but fortunately he didn't.
Well, Severio was so good, I reckon he just gravitated to him. And then if you look at the footage, Bucks would have rehearsed this as much as Cam Mooney's rehearsed his 2008 missed shot. And then Beefy James is just a chip pass, who was a really good player that day as well. He was a 15, 20-metre chip. Yeah.
Well, Sav had 9 by that stage, so.
Yeah,
Guys,
he's probably obligated to go to it.
Let's take a break. When we come back, Coach's Corner will be the Collingwood-Essendon game, but also 10 years since the Dogs had a big win against the Swans. A big win, all right. A grand final win. We'll come back and have a look at those two games right after this on Footy Classified.
Welcome back to Coach's Corner and Derm. We've got the biggest game of the year, the 31st anniversary of the first Anzac Day between Collingwood and Essendon, and what a game this shapes to be. I think for the first time in a while, Essendon a legitimate chance to win this game.
Absolutely. I mean, they showed 2.5 weeks ago they turned the corner and they've put some pretty good footy together. They're very young though, James. We'll touch on that in a second.
We are going to talk on the new version of the Baby Bombers, but first of all, the Collingwood ins. I mean, Collingwood have been struggling a little bit, not playing their best footy, but they've got 3 of the best coming in Darcy Moore, Steele Sidebottom and Jordan De Goey coming back into the side. Those 3 guys are all class, and they can move the ball and use the ball better than probably anyone on the team.
So high-reaching defender, power going forward. This bloke is what they needed last weekend. In a fairly scrappy game, he will give them class by foot.
Yeah, and he just carves up Essendon on Anzac Day. I mean, the guy just walks out on the ground and seems to get 35 possessions and kick 2. He's broken our heart on many occasions. So, Steele, if you're not feeling well, just stay away from this game. It'll be really, really good. As we said, the Essendon Football Club have really improved over the last few weeks, but they're young, aren't they? The Baby Bombers are young, and this is the new version of the Baby Bombers.
Absolutely. So you've heard some statistics go around the traps. This is what we're looking at. I mean, this kid can play. He's a beast.
Absolutely.
He may as well be 26 years of age in that body. But then you look at the games total next to them and you go down to young Archie, 12, Blackiston, 17, and then even at the top end, Archie Roberts, since he's come in, has not put a foot wrong. But thereafter, you jump from 33 games experience all the way up to 93.
It's a big gap, isn't it?
They're missing the 23, 4 and 5 year of age players who would fit inside this and that.
Loving Archie Roberts so far this year, but you're right. Sullivan Roby, he's only 2 games, but he's exciting many an Essendon fan and the way they're going. But you've seen Essendon are playing in a different style. They're playing, you know, sometimes slow, sometimes fast. It changes the way they're playing at certain times.
Well, they were just handing the ball back in recent weeks, until 2.5 weeks ago. So this is when they just decide, right, I've turned the ball over, I'm going quick, get it back in there quick, the back line's unsettled, and this is what senior players do for you. Kyle Langford, behind the footy, makes up that decision and recognises the moment. Here's another occasion where they've decided, right, OK, we want to play express, but look, you know what, it's a bit risky. So Archie Roberts, those 33 games experience, 5-10 games ago, he would have swung around and hammered it down the line. And now they're circumspect with the ball. They've got to bite off a few nice kicks to get the ball, but this is containment. So they've got 2 different modes they can play in.
And it allows you to defend with the ball in hand and actually set up your defence behind that when you move the ball slowly and actually set it up. Because we've noticed through their stats, the last 2 weeks, Essendon's stats and the way they've played have been fantastic. If you look at their match scoring, they're number 1 in the scores per match, where they were 6. Kick to handball ratio, they're 5th, and the uncontested mark 2nd and time possession 2nd. If you're holding onto the ball, the other team doesn't have it and can't attack. I think it's a big way about the Bombers are defending. I think this is, as I said at the start, this is a real chance for Essendon to win. If you're an Essendon supporter, go to the game with extreme confidence.
Absolutely. I know they played in heat last week, and that can get to a young team late in the game, and the home team was acclimatised to it. They just looked tired by the end. But the wonderful thing for the Bombers supporters was they kept having a rip.
Yeah.
They said, we are never going down without taking a swing. So love that from the young Bombers. But they do, because of their age bracket, they do tend to just get a little tired by the last quarter.
Really improve their tackling and the way that they're moving the ball and the way they contest the ball. But they're up against a team who doesn't give you many opportunities.
No.
Collingwood haven't been scoring a lot, but they don't get scored a lot. And the way they move the ball ball really stops this. The way they stay skinny down the line, they have corridor coverage. You see Pendlebury come over when they lose this ball. You'll see the Collingwood players to the left of screen there coming. See that corridor coverage to stop you going corridor, take you down the line and make it very hard to score against. So if Essendon turn the ball over and Collingwood win it back, they'll find it hard to get it back off them. And here again, Collingwood lose the ball here, but they minimise the damage because of the way the Carlton Football Club can't move the ball because of the corridor coverage and the way that Collingwood set up the ground.
Absolutely. So once again, you see that it's all straight lines. They've got two players who like to take the ball offline. Nick Dacos, he's got a licence to do whatever he wants, and Braden Maynard in the back line is not bad at taking the ball offline back into the centre. They're the two you've got to watch unless you want to be protecting against the down-the-line play, which they're utilising.
I know you've got a bias towards Essendon. I can't believe I'm saying that. Who's going to win the game?
Collingwood.
Collingwood, OK. So the other big game on the weekend, Thursday night, is the 10-year anniversary of the Bulldogs' first premiership in, 60-odd years. This is going to be a fantastic game and a memory for the Bulldogs, but it's going to be a tough day for the Bulldogs in terms of what they've got on the park.
Absolutely. It started 2.5 weeks ago, half-time of round 4, and they started to get some players go down. Tim English was the first one of them. Artie Jones at half-time against Essendon, I think it was round 4 as well. And thereafter, we see all this list going down. Now, there's some really good soldiers there. This one, they're going to give him right up until the first siren. But one thing that strikes me with this is hamstring. They're all within 4 hamstrings, and they're serious hamstrings. They're all within 7 to 14 days. Yeah, that's worth examining at some other stage.
This is enough to make any Western Bulldogs supporter weep. I mean, it really is, and particularly, I think Tim English was the first to fall in terms of the piece they really needed, and their lack of ruck is really hurting them. This is the ruck conundrum. English out. Darcy out, Lewis Emmett 2 games, Jordan Croft 7 games. They're talking now about Lachlan Smith debuting. Their ruck contingent is going to be made up of a total of 10 games in total of all 3 playing, and less than 10 if they don't play. Here's some vision of the young man that's going to come in. He's tall, but he's not a big boy, is he?
No, well, what is he? 203 centimetres, I think he is. So he's a good size, but he's no beast yet. I mean, and we've even seen like Nick Madden in GWS. He came up against in round 1. He came up against the opposition and was thanks Ed Grundy, and he monstered him. Even though Nick Madden's a great big kid, so you got to have some skill about you, even if you are a good.
Do you think it's a weakness of the list management that they don't have another experienced ruckman on the list other than Tim English?
I heard some talk about this, and you do go into a season going with what ifs. Now I can't see that the Dogs will go this rest of this year and season 2027 and say, you know what, we've got one recognised centre square ruckman.
Cal, what do you think? I mean, there's a pre-season draft mid-season draft's coming up in 4 or 5 weeks. Is that correct? Yeah. Are the Bulldogs a chance to get a ruckman in that mid-season draft?
Well, they've opened a spot now, Hirdy, because of Sam Darcy's season-ending injury, and there's a couple of rucks that are on the radar for a number of clubs. One of them is a young lad called Max Mapley. He's playing in Tasmania for the Devils VFL side. A lot of clubs look at him. So May 26 is the mid-season draft. Here's some of his vision that we see here. He's mobile, he's agile, he's improved a lot over the last 2 years. He's about 20 years old and 203, 204 centimetres. Braden Crosley as well is a player who previously, we see some of his vision here, has trained with the Dogs. So another option there if they do want to stock up, because as you say, Derm, there's a weak spot and a susceptibility on that list.
Plan your list.
Exactly right. That's what the mid-season draft gives them a chance to do in about a month.
Yeah, so, I mean, the Dogs coming up against a rampant Sydney Swans. They've got Brodie Grundy in the ruck. It's going to be pretty difficult for the Bulldogs forward line, the Bulldogs midfield to get control. Eddie, for me, it's the Swans by how far and the Bombers in a very tight one at the MCG, and I'm so happy, Cal, that I'm able to actually pick the Bombers again against the Pies on Anzac Day. It makes my heart warm.
Oh, good on you, mate. Well, enjoy it now, because we'll absolutely flog you on Saturday when we get to there.
We'll see.
Use your old saying, Ed. We'll kick your heads in.
That's it. We'll see you there, right? That was great, boys. Thank you very much. Good on you, Cal. That's really interesting with the mid-season draft coming up in just, 5 weeks' time. So there you go. We'll take a break. When we come back, thanks to Hyundai, who are just doing wonderful things, and their electric cars are magnificent at the moment. If you're looking at a new car and you want to get away from those petrol pumps, Hyundai, have a good look at them. We'll come back right after this with more big news on Footy Classified. Welcome back to Footy Classified. A couple of the other big issues that have been sort of buried a bit because of everything happening at Carlton. Twomey, I go to you on this to start with. And that was the arc concussion incident that happened at Essendon. So let's go through the situation here.
Well, the latest update is that John Noble's actually been cleared for this at the AFL tribunal tonight. But Tom Edwards, sent off the ground to do a head assessment there from Essendon. They cleared him. Obviously, then the arc got involved, Hirdy, and then pulled him off the ground. Brad Scott was shocked at that timing, and there he shakes his head, Tom Edwards, as he went down to the rooms to basically spend the rest of the game off the ground in a pivotal moment off the game. Now, the AFL has said there was a miscommunication between the ARC doctor and the club doctor, but concede they got it wrong here. I think we should look at the protocols here as well, and the official protocols here and the steps along the way. Now, clearly the independent ARC doctor has got involved around that step one, taken some action there. Following on from that, has put forward the call that he has to go through the process there. And then the confusion, Hirdy, has popped up whereby the Essendon doctor has been overruled by the ARC doctor.
So just quickly, it's a bit small, the graphic there, but you can see the bottom of the first big page there. It says mandatory SCAT 6. That's what the ARC doctor called for. Then he's jumped to the third one that says once you're off, basically, if a player is clinically cleared by a club's doctor, but independent ARC doctor performs permanent mandatory removal, then you're off. But, Hirdy, there was a mistake because actually that D has got a couple of other parts to it.
It has, and what the ARC doctor's looking at is different incidents that happen. So being totally knocked out to actually, I think, the one that was not being able to fend yourself off or not being able to protect yourself, and there's 6 or 7 different layers in that. And not being able to defend himself was what happened there, and that's why that was what was called for. But I think, from my understanding, is the AFL doctors are very happy that there is someone up in the sky making sure things are looked after, but occasionally things will get missed or won't get right.
There are going to be a couple of things like that, but the bottom line was it didn't cost anyone the game. He came off with, 6 minutes ago, was it, Cal, something like that?
Didn't cost the game, but it was still a pretty crucial period of the game.
But at the same time, they're going to err the other way. That's why they've got the doctors.
Which we've erred the other way for such a long time.
Yeah.
All the err that way.
And they've got $1 billion lawsuit.
So Johnny Noble got off this?
He did tonight,
I played in the wrong era. Elbowed him in the face. Hey, interesting too, Mrs Edwards on the Essendon social media platform, she wrote late in the game, is anyone down in the rooms? Can they tell me what's happened to my son?
It's concerning though. I understand that.
Tell you what's more disconcerting, the Dermott's on the Essendon's family social network.
I think everyone is still just coming to terms with the Dermott's part of the Essendon family.
Turn into the big bad wolf at some stage.
Now, speaking of the tribunal, to use a Dermott saying, they've had a mare.
Yep.
Okay, even Noble getting off tonight has, those ones are always...
Pretty hard to get off a charge when you elbow somebody in the teeth.
Yeah, even leaving that aside, the fact that the MRI said something and a tribunal says something differently. But let's go back to the Zach Butters one, because it's ended up with exactly what Greg Swan tried to do in the first instance, and that is, umpire, we understand that and believe that you heard what you heard, and Zach, we actually believe what you said that you said, but somewhere in the middle there, it's been lost in translation. Now, to me, I don't think there was a malfunction on the microphone. I just don't think it came out. So anything could have been heard. The key for me here is that we have to look after the umpire involved and let him go on. He didn't do anything wrong. He reacted to what he heard in the correct manner. Zach, at the same time, I thought the circumstantial evidence from start to finish showed that he really was telling the truth. He wasn't making it up along the way. But we've got to look at the tribunal. So
it's the Jason Johnson factor, isn't it?
Yeah.
Who's a former teammate of yours who will still be involved in tribunal cases going forward. The AFL has backed him to be involved in those, and he wants to be involved in those. But it was the technicality of him getting in the car, watching the tribunal proceedings on his phone, that the Port Adelaide lawyer attacked earlier this week. But the irony of the dog barking in the background being a distraction while he's complaining about a distraction.
Exactly.
Put that aside for a moment, though. But Jason Johnson's been the factor within this.
Yeah, I think Jason's been unfairly criticised. My understanding is he actually told the AFL that he had an appointment at 5:30. He was happy to do it, but he told them he had something at 5:30, so he'd have to leave. The meeting
Did
was
he ask
moved
to be exonerated? From doing it?
He just said...
Can I jump in and tell you what happened? They couldn't find anyone. Jason Johnson said, yep, I'm right, but I've got to go. I actually work as a real estate agent. I have to go to an open inspection at this time. At the same time, Renee Embom KC, who was the chair of the tribunal, also said, I've got a prior commitment, I'll make myself available, but I've got to get out. So the problem was that there was a time limit on finding justice. Now, I know that there was a meeting around the AFL today where people are starting to say, when you get 3 KCs in a room, it's going to go for 3 hours, right? Because each one believes that they're the smartest in the room and they're there to actually do what they have to do. Back when you were going up, Derm, and I was the young reporter at the tribunal, the rule was that you weren't allowed to have any legal background at all so that we didn't get into this. Because it all went to the wall when the Sydney Swans kept going to the courts during finals to get their players to get into grand finals and Barry Hall. And
well, that's exactly. They didn't want a quasi-courtroom.
That's it.
They wanted a tribunal.
Now we've got it, and I think now everyone's realising, hang on, this has gone too far, because in the end, the ultimate irony is that it's all blown up because of a legal technicality in a room that had 3 King's counsels involved in an incident that was solved by Greg Swan in a phone call.
Isn't the point that the tribunal members say they've got to go by 5:30? The meeting moved around 2 or 3 times during the day. Yeah. It just doesn't look like a professional outfit at all. So it's not the problem of the actual people on the tribunal. It's the system that's been put in place.
They did the right thing. They put themselves up. My point is this. Why don't we have full-time people? There's a billion... they've got enough people at the AFL who can do these things. It's like the umpires. When are we going to have some full-time umpires? So you don't have to work at Sportsbet or whatever the case may be. Take the pain out before it comes. This was always going to happen. Always. And then when it happens, everyone goes, oh, what's happening here? Just sort it out, nice and easy. Butters was in town to play football over the weekend. What about Sunday morning? Have the tribunal.
That's always been argued. There's not enough time if you go the next morning. They've always...
Yeah, but this one will be going for a week.
Yeah, true.
There was no argument on this one. True. And in the end, you know what happened in the end? Everyone said, too hard. Move on.
And everyone's unhappy too. Zach Butter's unhappy. Port Adelaide's unhappy. Josh Carr wants the rules changed. Nick Foot's unhappy. Well, the Umpires Association's not wrapped with how it's played out.
Well, generally the AFL's result is everyone's equally unhappy.
Well,
no, it is, but you have to actually do that because there's always somebody wanting. Carlton are unhappy, Brisbane are happy on the father-son, etc., etc. That's the way it goes. Anyway, they've got their wish this time. Yes. Everyone's unhappy. We'll take a break. When we come back, what do we got next there, Cal?
We've got, Fiji. We're going to Fiji.
Bulla, bulla, Nicky boy. Welcome back to Footy Classified. Right, how about this? This is one of the best prizes in football. Fiji Airways. How about this? The performance of the year by a player will see a player receive 2 business class return flights with Fiji Airways to Fiji, then to North America, plus 5 nights accommodation in Fiji at the luxurious Nanaku Resort. Absolutely unbelievable. Fiji can connect straight, of course, to North America, including LA, San Francisco, Dallas, the big hub if you want to go further on, Honolulu and Vancouver. It is absolutely the way to go. And they are the friendly airways. Paul Scurra and the team just doing magnificent things there. Proud sponsors and partners of Footy Classified for the performance of the year. And the performance of the year might well be us doing a show up there in the middle of winter, boys. What do you reckon?
Sounds good. Sounds like a good plan.
Send Paul a happy... Just tell him what a good bloke he is, OK?
You're a great bloke, Paul.
Sounds good. I'll be like an Iranian soccer player. I'll defect if I go over there. I'll stay.
Cal?
Well, Jeremy Cameron may as well book his tickets because he's surely off there after the weekend. 10 goals. How can you go past that? Had 7 to half-time in this rout of the Western Bulldogs. Did all the heavy lifting. Put the icing on the cake for the Cats with the 10th goal coming in the final kick of the game. When he's like this, he's unstoppable at his absolute best. The second time in 13 games he's reached double figures. It's undeniable he's the best player of last round and did the job when he had to. Here's the 10th. What a ripping performance from Jeremy Cameron. Has to win.
Sensational performance, wasn't it?
Has to. What a delight the Cats
didn't play against much, though.
It wasn't premiership favourites 3 weeks ago.
Not then.
Not now.
You should do that if you get 80 inside 50s. I'm going for Nick Watson. Now, what happened was they lost their 2 key forwards, the Hawks. They brought in the first gamer and they brought in young Cal Shadir, the inexperienced Cal Shadir. So, if Nick Watson doesn't kick 5, Hawthorn don't win this game. This is the #1 small forward in the competition at the moment. Nobody plays better than him as a small forward. When was the last time you can remember a small forward kicking 5 goals? It is rare as hen's teeth. Having said that, Calcio, yeah, 10 goals.
So, Derm, I just want to send a message to Paul Scurra. Get those 2 tickets, send them to the Collingwood Football Club, addressed to Mr Nick Dacos, because this was the game of the year. No one will play a game on the next 39 disposals, 9 score involvements, 8 clearances, that goal at the end of the game. Nick is on fire, playing the best footy, and get yourself a hula skirt, Nick, because you're on your way to Fiji.
This one, and I went for Nick Dacos. No, I didn't. I went for Taylor Walker, my man Tex. Now, Tex was struggling at half-time, and then he came out, and again, talk about the difference. He's on the captain, or Cal Wilkie there, the captain of St Kilda, and he had to send both of those players, you know.
Played good games.
I mean, he played well, but he's
game.
only played half a game, Taylor.
Yeah, exactly, but it was the half that won the game for them, and he was just great. This was the one that nailed the game. Composure, he's getting better with age, and still performing really well.
It's a good game. He genuinely is turning into a better player as he gets older.
He is.
Yeah. It was a very good game, but not a great game. Well, it's pretty obvious who won. I mean, you voted for Nick as well, so it wasn't very hard. So of course Nick Dacos won. I actually got to slit a bit of paper and said, make sure he wins.
One?
What's that?
How'd you get Nick?
He got him first.
I washed Eddie's car yesterday. So.
He wants to come to Fiji. No, well done, Nick Dacos this week said it was I don't think there was any argument other than the fact that Jeremy Cameron was absolutely magnificent, and we'll keep an eye out for Jeremy in the next few weeks.
How many's he got to kick to get it?
Well, you know, it's not about kicking goals, it's about impact on a particular game. That game was done.
At half-time after he's kicked 7.
That's it. 100% right. Good argument there, Cal. You should have said that one before we voted. All right, we're going to take a break. When we come back, News or Noise is one of my favourite segments. It's one to round off another big night on Footy Classified next.
Probably come here thinking, no, we're going to have a real bad one today in the first quarter. What do you honestly think?
You ever seen about 8 Bulldogs standing out the other side of the ground? Did you see that? No. You didn't see it? Well, you didn't see that?
What, do they reckon they come to play marbles or football, or do you think they didn't come to play? Do you think they sat in their cars waiting for the game to start and go out there?
Rooch, you sent me postcards from Italy where you're herding the sheep and counting the sheep. Like, to be honest, you're a Port Adelaide nothing. Like, let's move on.
Yes, time for the best segment of the night. I think it's News or Noise, brought to you by Hyundai. Derm, before I get to you, I'll listen to this one.
Okay.
Adelaide? Did they play finals last year? Adelaide didn't play finals.
Yes.
Did Adelaide play finals?
No,
Did Adelaide play finals last year?
yeah, Adelaide.
Okay.
Yeah.
One final, 2 finals?
Yeah.
2. Did they make a prelim? No.
No, lost.
I can't remember.
Right, News or Noise, Derm. Ross Lyon was out of line in his presser.
Oh, I reckon he's fantastic. He's laid a challenge down. Come tooled up with good questions or I'm taking you down.
What do you think, Ed?
Well, take him on. That's what the journo should do. You should have said, yes, mate. It's not a trivia question here. You're 2 and 4. You're not going that well. Have a go back. Come back with some answers. Go in there. As Sam Newman say, in a battle of wits, don't come half-armed.
Hirdy, one for you. Sam Darcy should never ruck again. News or Noise?
That's noise. No, I think he should. I mean, he's out in the ground. He can play the game. And the fact of the matter is he didn't do his knee in the ruck. I understand there's a potential for PCLs there. But, look, shocking injury. I think our heart goes out to Sam and his family. And really, you just hope he comes back bigger and better. But I can't see why he can't be stronger and bigger and better, and sometimes playing the ruck, not all the time, but he's such a versatile man around the ground that he's very hard to match up on that role.
I'd play him in the ruck and occasionally push him forward.
All right, Ed, you're up next. But before we get to that, I want to go back more than 12 months to this exclusive on this set.
Tonight, I can tell you that the AFL is working on a radical change to its fixture for the next 2 seasons that would see the grand final played in the second week of October and the return of State of Origin football to be launched in the 2026 season.
All right, Ed, News or Noise? An October grand final is a good thing. One day in October. Or you'd say one afternoon or one twilight.
I heard on Channel 7 News by some bloke last night saying it was an exclusive a year after his dad might have actually broken the story. Anyway, they never listen to you, do they, those kids? There's been 28 grand finals in October, for those who want to know, 8 of which Collingwood have won, by the way, so I do like an October. 4 for Geelong and 4 for Richmond. Yes, it is, and I said they're the second week. At the moment, they're talking about the first week. it still may be the second week, but there's the mitigation is because of the sesquicentennial test at the start of the year, and also there's some issues with the NFL game being played and just getting the match-up there right. There's a bit of negotiation to happen through there and get it sorted out. But it'll definitely be in October. Just when is what is up for negotiation. I don't see any problem whatsoever. To be perfectly honest, I like the idea of going into October. I'd like to see the second week, because then it gives us clear air after the NRL Grand Final's done. It'll be a massive Grand Final. It also means you can play it later because daylight savings will be kicked in by that stage. Be perfect twilight game. That's where it should be played. There.
And you know those Collingwood premierships won after the First World War?
Yeah. 1990.
No, in October. Oh, okay, one. Okay. Just asking. Don't give me the stare.
2023, we went on the last day of September, so you can chuck that one in as well.
News or noise? The AFL's been overlooking some of the best talent in the country.
No, this is news. So I went through it. 414 players run out onto a ground every weekend under the fraternity of AFL. We miss blokes every year. I can tell you, we don't play the 414 best available fit players every weekend in Australia. Angry Anderson proved that last weekend. We see so many of these boys. Cooper Tremba, till last year, was running around in the Eastern Ranges area, getting kicks at will. Because we have to take kids in the draft, and we've got to look to the future. We bring these kids in and drafting, with a view to the future. 5 or 6 of them aren't ready, and we have to play them each year. I don't know. I know it costs money to make the list bigger, but there are blokes who are in the 414 best players every weekend who are fit in Australia. We don't get them out there.
There's also working class kids and also blokes who actually want to make a quid and go and be tradesmen who don't go off to private school scholarship squads or play in the under-18s, who actually are doing a man's day job from the time they're 16, 17, who we're missing out on these days. We've got to be careful of this, but we don't want to become a private school entry system. We've got to keep going back and finding where these kids are and have a proper pathway forward.
The VFL is full of kids or men who can play AFL football, who go to work as labourers, get up at 5, start training at 5 in the afternoon, get home at 10 and do it day after day after day and play on the weekend. And you give some of those guys an opportunity and you'll see some very good football.
So it'll take a radical change, but I'm looking at Richmond. They're playing people, young men, who aren't ready yet. And if you had a bigger list, some extended list capabilities, you could play an Angry Anderson, the one you find next weekend, instead of bashing a kid up because he has to go out there to fill the night.
We're unanimous. That is news. Thanks, Cal. Well done. Tab top 3 right after this to wrap up Footy Classified. Let's wrap up with the tab top 3. Cal Twomey, what's yours for the big game between Sydney and the Dogs?
The Amati party steals the show off Charlie Curnow. Joel Amati kicks 5. Your man, Derm.
He's a good lad, isn't he, Joel Amati? Look, I think the Suns, the Swannies will get it done very, very comfortably. I just cannot see the Dogs covering their losses.
10 goals plus?
I've gone circumspect. I've gone for an 8 goal, 2 goals a quarter. Maybe get some interest on it.
All right, Hirdy?
Isaac Heaney to kick 5. I think they'll get plenty of the ball. There'll be plenty of ball in their forward half and he is in great form. So, yeah, Heaney handful, 5 goals.
Good on you, boys. Fantastic stuff. Great job tonight as usual, Cal. Thank you, Derm.
Cheers,
Great
Ed.
to see you here, pal. Hope the knee's going well.
Thank you.
Hirdy? Good on you, pal.
Good to see you.
Good on you, boys. That's been Footy Classified. Make sure you join us on the Sunday Footy Show. Of course, on Sunday morning, it's an absolute ripper, 10 o'clock. And then Footy Classified Monday and Tuesday. Catch you next week. Enjoy the footy.
You win some, you lose more. For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website.